welcome you to No Blame and No Shame, where real men talk. I am Pastor Ieisha from the Love Church, and I was led to create a platform where men could come and have a voice, that they will be able to talk about concerns, especially during this global pandemic that we've been experiencing. This month is a month of mental health awareness. And so I wanted to be able to navigate in some murky waters. So I had to call on a few friends to help us to be able to navigate through these different places. So I'm just gonna give it 2 more minutes. At 7:35, we're gonna start, but I just want to give an announcement for those that are watching Facebook Live. You can post your questions in Facebook Live and we will try to entertain your questions. And for those who are joining us on Zoom, we will try to, if you go into the chat room, we'll try to entertain your questions through the start. So, one of the things that I'm really excited about, I reached out and I connected with someone who I definitely admire in this industry. Not only is he a pastor, he's a psychotherapist, he's a professor. He's like, you know, I'm finding out all these different things about him. And it's just amazing how when you start connecting with different people, you begin to find out just how, close people are and how with the proximity that they're in. And so I'm excited about tonight, especially on this platform. I'm gonna pull in another colleague of mine, which is Gillis, Brother Gillis Taylor. He and I went to school together at Howard University. And I'm gonna let him introduce Pastor Johnson on tonight. Because I think it would just be so fitting. Like I said, I'm trying to give a platform so that our brother voices can be heard on tonight, questions that can be dealt with even in the midst of wherever it is that they may be. So Gillis, would you do me the honors and please give us a quick introduction of Pastor Johnson?
It will be my honor and privilege to do that. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hey, well, like I said, it's my honor and privilege to introduce Dr. Professor Reverend Pastor Johnson there. He was my instructor, Professor Wesley, when I was taking the pastoral care course. And I will tell you that definitely this brother believes in healing. And in our course, he took us some places that we didn't know we needed to go, but we went anyhow. And I think some of us was kind of shy about getting there. But I will tell you, it definitely improved relationships in my life. And if he could do the same, which I know he will with us, and we can go ahead and multiply it with contacts with other people, we'll do great things. As I said before, he definitely believes in healing. And now, with no further ado, I introduce you to my former professor and current speaker, Dr. Reverend Pastor Cedric Johnson.
Thank you. Thank you, brother. Now, what am I supposed to do after that? You know?
Your best.
I love you too, brother.
Likewise.
Well, that's why I like Pastor Cedric. You know, he could always think on his feet. And I think what he does it effortlessly. And this is why he was just the right person for tonight.
Yeah, no, he does it Holy Ghost powered. That's what he does.
That's true too.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to be with you all tonight. My brother, thank you for the introduction. Those were some good years at Wesley. I thoroughly enjoyed myself during the time I was there. Thank you for the introduction. Pastor Ieisha, thank you for the invitation to be on the call tonight. Wow, so much is going on to cover. We certainly are not going to be able to get to everything in the time that we have, but it's a pleasure to be here. So I'm looking forward to the
that there's a lot of us that's in the room, and I don't know if you have any questions that you may have, but Pastor Cedric, I'm just going to turn it over to you, and you can kind of open up the dialogue. That would be very helpful.
So I've unmuted myself. I think I don't know if you planned it this way, Pastor Ieisha, or
Okay.
not. To have this particular meeting on today. This is Malcolm X's birthday.
Wow.
And I think I saw a posting that Malcolm would have turned 95 today, I think. So to have this gathering on Malcolm's birthday, I think
Let me get my hearing piece.
I think kind of sets a context for our conversation on today. I think the other thing that has been on my mind that I had a desire to have a conversation about in a context like this. A number of us have been navigating the ups and downs, the emotional roller coaster, the trauma, the grief. Many of us have loved ones that are sick. Others of us have loved ones that have died. Many of us are socially isolated. Some of us have lost our jobs or been furloughed. There's a lot, this is a moment, a historical moment that's unprecedented, at least for this generation. And I know as a male of color, and then added to that, how the coronavirus crisis has disproportionately impacted Black and Brown populations. I just heard before joining the call today that they actually have some data now and see how the coronavirus crisis has disproportionately impacted poorer communities here in New York City. So I say all that to say that for me, I think I was already kind of at capacity navigating emotionally everything there is to navigate in this moment. But something that really probably pushed me close to my capacity was hearing about the incident with Brother Arbery down in Georgia. And after that happened, I still haven't looked at the footage. I can't look at it because it re-traumatized me. I have colleagues and friends that have looked at it, but I couldn't look at it as a Black male. And I still haven't looked at it. Now in this case, jogging while Black. And in the midst of navigating everything that all of us were navigating as part of this pandemic, to see that happen, to be reminded to be a Black person, to be a person of color, to be a African-American male, to be reminded that I'm an endangered species, even in the midst of a pandemic, was quite a bit emotionally for me to navigate. And I still, quite frankly, still am somewhat in a fog as a result of it. So I'm thankful to be here. I really have mixed emotions today because I'm still processing that incident in Georgia. I'm processing Malcolm's birthday. So all that taken together really had me, I almost wrote a blog or something. I just had a desire to just be in conversation with some other people of color, and particularly some other men of color, as I kind of processed that incident in Georgia, even in the midst of this crisis. So I'll just throw that out as something that has been really challenging to me, and as part of just kind of setting part of the context for our conversation tonight, and just wondering how maybe some of the other brothers may have been processing that as well.
My sister Ieisha, Cedric, this is Lawrence. I'm grateful to be a part of this conversation. Cedric, thank you for setting that up because I think a number of those emotions for me overlap today. I was interesting. I sit on a film festival board, and one of the board members every year around this time talks about Spike Lee's Malcolm X. And the conversation we always have is it's criminal that Denzel did not receive an Oscar for Malcolm X. And the question we always have is it's the same conversation we have, but similarly in the world, it's the same conversations we're having around our brother Ahmaud. And I think the frustration I think I'm feeling, I'm still trying to even articulate my feelings, is that I almost feel like there's no space for black male righteous anger in this world. And one of the things that I appreciate about Malcolm, beyond the Haley autobiography, with just all of the research I've done on him, is what James Baldwin would say. He corroborated our pain. And I think I feel in this time, whether in family, because you have to hold it together and not destabilize everyone who is depending upon you emotionally, financially. If you're caring for a community, particularly a lot of times leadership, you can't necessarily process in the same community. So you don't necessarily have that outlet. And then in the world, it is threatened by I would say that traditional, for lack of a better word, that type of energy that Malcolm, even has no space here. And so even as you feel it, you relate to that. You feel really, it's like you're not only locked in with this, but you feel locked in emotionally and spiritually. So that, I think, picking up on what you were sharing about, I felt like a kettle, like the wineskin, about to burst with all of this stuff going down, that there's no space or no welcome space for the righteous anger that I feel. And even the practical steps I would take, to address it.
Yeah, no, your comments, Lawrence, echo to a large extent my own experience as well. For a number of you know, some of the work I do with City to City. And as part of that organization's kind of walking through this coronavirus crisis moment, we took out a day to fast and pray together as a staff. And as part of the kind of schedule for the day, we had 3 times of collective prayer: morning, midday, and then early evening, late afternoon. Well, the first moment of prayer in the morning was focused on lament, was the focus of that time of prayer in the morning. And as we kind of went through that time of lament together, it was opened up for a number of us to share. And I shared that lament, as you just pointed out, Lawrence, lament does not just only entail weeping and sadness. Lament also gives voice to anger, if you will, right? And but similar to what you just shared, Lawrence, I've been feeling like I've been living a muted existence, if you will, right? And that the church, neither the church nor the larger society can deal with all of my swagger, if you will, right? And that to survive, I have to mute who I am, as a Black man, both in the larger society and, quite frankly, sadly, as a Black man and within Christian spaces as well. They're threatened by it, so I find myself muting who I am in those spaces. So, yeah, like you. So then what are the implications for us, right? What are the implications for our own wellness, our own mental health, when we have to, in fact, navigate these spaces that are not safe spaces, not being able to express all of who we are and not having spaces that can hold not only the sadness, but can function as a holding space for our anger as well. So yeah. So how some of you other brothers navigated this space, whether in reference to the pandemic, in reference to brother Arbery's, what happened with that horrific incident, how the rest of you been navigating?
I will, this is Gillis Taylor, or was somebody else trying to speak? I'll step down. I like to use one word. That's about the best way for me to describe it. Just full. You know, you grow, you've seen this over and over and over in a multitude of ways in your lifetime. You see it, we see it in our professions, you know, how there's a double standard and everything. And then the thing is that this young man, regardless of how small the mistake he made, you know, the run-in he had with the law, they tried to blow it up and make it seem as though he was a death row criminal or something like that. And you look around and you see how, as a Black man, that, as you say, being muted, and we mute ourselves. But then the other question is this an indoctrination, you know, that we do to keep ourselves safe? And we know we have to, because we all know about the theory of the angry Black man, and how society says when we get upset, they feel unsafe. But just today, I read an article about a man that killed his wife, a white man that killed his wife, and said he killed her because she had corona. And, you know, just looking at the double standards as far as crime is concerned, where you see a whole list of crimes that white men commit, from mass killings to shootings in schools, but then we come back and let how we become demonized for one incident. I'm just, like I said, saturated as like, how much more can I take?
All of you to go into the chat and write one word to describe how you've been feeling. To give some voice, to have the opportunity to give voice to it tonight. To go into the chat and you know, write a word or two regarding how you've been navigating, how you've been feeling, what feelings came to the surface for you as a result of the shooting in Georgia, or what feelings have you been dealing with navigating this pandemic. Saturation, righteous anger. So, anybody else? How have you been feeling? Helpless. Indifferent. How have the rest of you been doing? I'm curious. Ieisha,
I have one thing to say.
Go ahead.
This is not new. This has been going on over and over. And I think the way we deal with things have to change. We have to change it from being a racial crime to just not a hate crime, just a crime, period. We need to start with that, because we never win none of these cases. It never goes to our favor. And we always go with the same cry, marches, and everything else. It does not work. So I think we need to go between a racial indifference, or whether it was evil and good. You know, these were evil men. You know, like the last brother just said, you know, and he just pointed out, look, there's people that's evil. They do dumb stuff. So that's why I said, like, when I saw that happen, I said, you know what? These two guys they're going to walk, because we made it a racial. We took away from the real crime, which was evil. you know, and we made it into a racial crime. We hired the same lawyer, the same thing, Reverend Al Sharpton, everyone gets involved, and they're going to win again.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I hear you and I feel you. I think as you were sharing, what kind of came to my mind is, you know, we've all been binging on Netflix and watching old movies or whatever during this break. And I watched well, it's not that old, the movie that was done on Thurgood Marshall during the break. I just watched it, I think, a couple of nights ago. Even though Lawrence Fishburne's solo performance on Broadway was, I think, better, but I watched the movie portrayal of Thurgood a couple of nights ago, and I think that movie speaks to the fact that what we're up against is expressed in different ways, so it requires different types of strategies to address it as well. Like you, my brother, I'm, for one, was wondering whether the strategies of the 60s with just the marching would suffice for this present moment that we're in. But if you look at struggles of resistance, the function of the agitator does play a role, but it has to be part of a larger resistance strategy, right? So yeah, no, I think I hear you and I feel you, but I think if we're going to see change occur, just as it was portrayed in that movie, you've got to think about interventive strategies that address a host of different areas. Mm-hmm. Legal, and isn't that one of the things that has been brought to everyone's attention, how this pandemic has exposed the inequities that have been in our society, long-standing inequities, right? Inequities in the educational system, inequities in the healthcare system. So to address these issues, it's going to require strategies that address all of those areas. So yeah, that's how I kind of the feedback I'd give to your response. It can be frustrating. It seems like no progress is made, but the truth of the matter is, the privileges, most of the privileges that many of us have, you know, they were wrought during the movement, civil rights movements, Black Power movements, various movements, and we stand upon the shoulders of so many that have done so much to grant us the liberties that we as people of color have today.
Pastor Johnson.
Yes.
How are you? It's Daryl Dozier. I was muted or what have you, but I'm good now.
Yes.
Hello everyone. Hello the other good brother there and Pastor Harley. But when I saw the incident that happened down in Georgia,
yeah,
my parents are from South Carolina and I work in the city of Camden. And what it does, it reminds me of what my parents, what my grandfather used to tell me, and what my father used to tell me. Some of the things that's going on now. Here it is. I always try to be an outstanding citizen and keep God first and everything. And even when I'm driving in my car and I go through predominantly white neighborhoods. Yeah. And one time I got pulled over, never had a speeding ticket or anything. First thing I'm thinking I got my hand at the 9 and 3 o'clock position. Yeah. And first thing I'm like, whoa, did someone use my name or did I get a ticket or what have you? Yeah. And here it is to, see a brother like that just jogging, through a neighborhood and see something like that. It's just, with all the things that's currently going on. And here it is. I mean, this is something that you still have to deal with history repeating itself. So it just really make me sometimes, want to stay in my own community. Yeah. And they make me just really be on my P's and Q's and not really want to. Here it is. This brother was jogging during the daytime. So it's praying times, but folks are getting fed up. And, you get a lot of folks from the inner urban city that's not trying to hear this because, it's the same verdict all the time. Yeah. The guy's acquitted or what have you. But here it is. You have mass murderers that are of the Caucasian persuasion, and these individuals are handled with kid gloves or what have you. But yet a situation like that, it's just, you know, really make you go back to a theme back in the 80s, like in the latter part of the 80s. None of my heroes appear on the stamp. So it's real frustrating. It's very frustrating, but I've learned to take everything to God, and I know God is going to work things out. But we as a people have to come together and have to get in touch with our congressmen and get in touch with those folks down there and do something about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But,
Yeah. I don't know. Go ahead.
But why are we so shocked, though? That's what I don't understand. We should not be shocked at these actions. This is, you know, we know where we at. We know where the hatred comes from. There's no way we being shocked every year. Every 2 years, every year we shocked that a white man shot another black man. Why are we so shocked?
Yeah, I think the thing that the reason it impacted me so much is because of the emotional energy I was already utilizing to navigate the pandemic, right? So I was already utilizing a significant amount. I've had friends that are sick, still are sick. I've had friends that have died as a result of this pandemic, close friends. So I think what happened is my emotional reserves were being so much utilized navigating the grief, the trauma of this pandemic, that when it occurred in the context of the pandemic, I was like, I do not need this added to my plate right now, in light of everything else that, and then with, again, the pandemic itself disproportionately impacting Black and brown and poor populations, and the righteous anger about that itself, than to have another senseless killing of a Black man in that context. I think that's what it was. You know, and in no way to kind of belittle that by you lighting this phrase, but the proverbial straw that broke the camel's back, right? But I say that in no way, but again, something added to already navigating the death and trauma and grief of what had already been transpiring the past 2 months. But that's for me why it had such an impact.
I think, in my opinion, it's sort of like being a boxer in a ring and you're outmatched. And how many punches you have to take before you can get one shot in, or before the bell rings. I mean, it's not like we're able to throw any punches back, but we just get hit and hit. If you ever seen a match where a guy just, you know, the champ or the challenger just keeps punching him, and you're wondering, you know, when is enough?
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, we know we can sit right here right now, and all of us can prophesy that sometime before the year's out, another Black man will be senselessly killed, or Black person. But again, how much is not a thing of being surprised. It's just that the emotional cost of when you see that happen.
Yeah.
You know, because now what happens subconsciously and unconsciously, I think about my son and my grandsons. You know, will they be able to walk or go or do whatever they're gonna do in peace? And Dr. Johnson, you said something about the civil rights movement. And last month, you know, and all of this is going on, we didn't really memorialize the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King. And so, but one of the things I noticed in studying that part of our history was, in Memphis, there was a dramatic change in the movement that not many of us picks up on. And the fact was that all the other movements was about desegregation, schools and stuff like that. In Memphis, those brothers raised up. They were like, if you go back and watch on YouTube, they had signs, "I'm a man." You know, and they had that riot in downtown Memphis and tore the town up. Right? And so that thing went from just being accepted to demanding respect. You know, and so I think, and this is just my opinion, that's when somebody said, hey, we got to shut this thing down because it's migrating into something that after a while is going to be a serious power struggle. So what we have now, and then you look at 2012, and we talk about voter suppression kicked in, is because Mitt Romney lost the election with 60% of the white vote. No president has ever done that. So what you're talking about, we're living in a society where a lot of people are afraid of us. You know, not only of us individually, but collectively of our power. And that's why we continue to get the punches that we get.
So let me throw this out to you all, because this has been a helpful framework to me, and we just don't have within the context of an hour to unpack it all. I'm working with a couple of other brothers and sisters, Pastor Ieisha being one of them, kind of in the mental health, emotional wellness space, trying to be of service to our communities as we navigate this pandemic. But one of my colleagues uses a particular framework in his webinars that I just want to throw out to you all. He likes to think about assessing, discussing the webinar, looking at it through three lenses. One, the personal; second, the pastoral; and three, the prophetic. The personal, the pastoral, and the prophetic, right? So a lot of our conversation thus far, you know, we kind of opened with some personal, we kind of talked a little bit about some prophetic. A number of you function in various leadership roles, whether you're functioning as a leader of a faith community, leadership in a larger community, even leadership in your home, right? So I've appreciated our conversation that maybe has kind of fallen within that prophetic space, right? The injustices, right? Some of the systemic things that we need to address going forward, right? But tonight, and I know we're just meeting each other, at least I'm just meeting you all, but I do want to press us into the personal though, you know, because a lot of the language that we've been sharing with others is related to the importance of putting on your own oxygen mask first, right? When we're on an airplane, the flight attendant says, if there's an emergency, don't help the elderly person sitting next to you first. Don't even help the kid sitting next to you first. Put on your own oxygen mask first, because you're not going to be able to be of any assistance to anyone else for any sustained period of time if you don't look at what's going on and practice your own self-care and look at your own wellness. We as men of color, for all types of reasons that many of us are aware of, all of us don't do relationships well. All of us don't have a lot of friendships. All of us are not transparent with one another when we're hurting, right? To have one male friend that we can be truly transparent with, right? That we don't have to have a facade with them, that we can like, yo, man, this is what's really going on. You know, to have, for a male of color, to have one person like that in their lives is a blessing, right? And I know one of the things that has been a result of this pandemic is it's pressed me into being more intentional about my relationships with other men, right? It's pressed me to reach out to some brothers that as a result of my own paper chase, right? It's like, no, we need each other. And we're sure enough going to need each other going forward, right? So before we kind of continue down kind of the prophetic road, I want to just double back and press into what's going on with you, man. What's going on in your home? For those of you that are in relationships, what's going on with you in those relationships? For those of you that are parents, what's going on with you and those kids, right? Because we said, what, for real talk, right?
Right. That's right.
You know? So, right, so that's why, you know, that kind of framework, you know, pastoral, prophetic. For some of you, we might switch out pastoral and stick something in as else might better articulate kind of that middle space, but certainly personal, prophetic, individual, maybe individual, family, larger societal stuff. So before we get off of this call tonight, you know, how are you all? For those of you that are married, or those of you that are in relationships, how y'all doing?
Hey, I would like to comment.
Yeah.
I would like to comment on the subject, and personally, the first thing that you mentioned about males having, I'm 55 years old. Males having other males that they would speak just you know, frankly with and let in, and I lived my whole life on the other side of that spectrum. Whatever I deal with on my own, between me and God, I deal with, and I don't convey that to no other man. You know, it's between me and God. But through this pandemic and situations occurring, and as you was mentioning, where it gave me time not to be so busy with work and with those other pursuits, where I have an opportunity to actually do just what you said, see the benefit in having that brother that I can say, you know what, something's going on with me. You know, something's going on with me, and humble myself and let down the tough guy exterior and say, look, man, this was going on. And surprisingly enough, some of the things that I'm dealing with, they were dealing with also. You know, and so when I opened the door my way, then they open the door from their way and say, I'm doing something similar to that. And so how do we navigate it, you know, and back and forth, and through the word of the Lord is where, you know, we kind of guide each other through the spirit, not through the of our worldly knowledge. It's so much. And so it's been just that I had that experience through this pandemic. I had that experience, and also even inside the home, you know, at home with the family, it's been a time for just simply drawing in. You know, my family is closer now than we've ever been before. You know, the family's closer. Me and my wife, actually, I'm pretty much a newlywed. My wife of 2 years now. We come on our 2nd year anniversary. We're really have an opportunity because we both are professional people. We both work, and we have an opportunity to actually really bond and get and spend the time. You know, laughter. You know, not so much busyness. You know, laughter and really getting into one another. So it's really, you know, I like to say it's been a blessing. It's been a blessing, and I feel a little guilty by saying this, but it actually has been a real blessing for me and my household to be shut in like this. You know, I know there's a lot of people that has you know, that are experiencing some adverse situations and circumstances, which, you know, I pray for them daily. But it has been just that. It's been a time for me and my new wife. You know, this is my 2nd marriage. I was married 20 years before, and I'm now married 2 years. And it's it's still new. So this did give me opportunity to really, for her to get to know me on another level, and me to get to know her more interpersonally.
No, thanks for sharing that, man. You're not the first person that I've heard share that the time together actually has been a time to draw closer with our partners and draw closer to our kids. The other side of that coin, though, is a lot of statistics talk about how, as a result of moments like this, domestic violence goes up. The rate of domestic violence, the rate of divorce goes up, right? The rate of I'm involved in an upcoming webinar looking at pornography use during the pandemic, because pornography use, particularly among pastors, goes up during these times. So yeah, but I think, I that's why I wanted to double back to the personal, to see how you all are doing as it relates to caring for yourselves, your own emotional wellness.
Right. Dr. Johnson, I had to say through this pandemic, or what have you, I got a chance to get reacquainted with a friend of mine that I've met in college almost 36 years ago. And, through the ups and downs, the things that's going on with this pandemic, I got a chance by getting realigned with that particular person to kind of more or less put this kind of pandemic aside. So through, even like I said, through the deaths and through the sickness and things of that nature, I got a chance to really get a lot closer to God, get reacquainted with a friend of mine. I lost my wife to cancer 18 years ago. And a man to find a wife find a good thing. And I realized through this pandemic, I got a chance to get reacquainted with this particular person, and being able to communicate with her and being able to, to talk about, the things that are currently going on or what have you, kind of helped me weather the storm. See, I grew up an only child. I have no brothers and sisters. And I kind of always took things to myself and, taking things to God or what have you. But I got a chance to really talk to her about a lot of things or what have you. And it was really, it was like, she was very supportive in this time or what have you. And I have, when you made mention of males being able to talk to males, I have one fraternity brother of mine who works with me in the city of Camden. Me and him get a chance to talk about some of the different things that are going on. So I know, being that I work with the Department of Human Services, this is something that I'm going to take back and reach out in the city of Camden and do a forum. Because I'm going to keep it real. I grew up in North Philadelphia and Camden, New Jersey. And a lot of brothers don't always feel comfortable with speaking to folks, but I know through this particular time here, if sometimes they see a familiar face and, you talk to them, say, hey, what's going on? And sometimes some of us, when we kind of reach the heights, I realize a lot of times just talking, just keeping stuff simple, put the big words aside and things of that nature, and let folks know that you're real. That's everything. Being able to, talk to a brother and say to him, hey, brother, what's going on? How you making out through this? How can I be of assistance to you? And a lot of times, rather than telling folks, oh, give me a call, sometimes if you just approach those individuals, just say, look, bro, here's my number. You want to talk? Let's sit down and talk. What's going on with you, family? And, and just break bread with these individuals. And you'll be surprised that a lot of folks, when you come down off of those ivory towers and you talk to some of these folks are willing to talk to you. But a lot of times, sometimes when they see titles, sometimes in front of your name, when you just come down and bust it, and sit down and bust it up with them and just talk to them, say, hey, what's going on, man? How can I help you? Is it something I could do for you regarding unemployment, regarding various programs? Because what I realized, a lot of our folks, like in cities like Camden, New Jersey, don't always necessarily know the different programs and things of that nature that's going on. And a lot of times they are afraid to come and talk to you, what have you. However, you go out there in the neighborhood, you canvass the neighborhood, you just talk to these folks. And what you do is you get someone that's an ambassador in that particular neighborhood, that particular ward, or what have you. Because there's a lot of folks out there that's really hurting and looking for someone to talk to, or what have you. And what I found is when sometimes you help folks in your time of need, you know, your blessings will come, you know, around or what have you later on by helping out that individual. And I think a lot of times if we was to reach out and do some of those kind of things, you'll be surprised. Some of those folks that would come and talk to you. But sometimes they're intimidated. You know, they see sometimes the MBAs, the PhDs behind folks things, but you roll up your sleeve and you just reach out to them. And I know definitely that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go back and talk to my director and even talk to the mayor of the city of Camden and say, this is something that's very important when times like this come about. Just a men's forum where we can sit down and talk, bring folks that are pastors, folks that are in gangs, things of that nature. You'll be surprised because what I realized too is some of them same individuals, some of those same guys that's out there in these hoods that's on the corner are very approachable.
Very much so. Yeah. No, to your point, brother, I'm glad you shared what you shared because it expresses something that was in my heart and my mind. And I thought, all right, Cedric, you're just a little crazy here. But before I say that, let me flip it back to just kind of close out one part of what we were talking about. As far as us having male friends that we can keep it real with.
Right.
If you don't have someone that fits that description, I would encourage you all, right? Reflect upon a brother in your relational network. Give some thought to the men in your relational network and try and identify one or two that could fill that role, that maybe even has the potential to fill that role, right?
Yes.
So just kind of let your mind's eye scan your relational network. I feel very confident that maybe one or two brothers will come to your mind that possibly with some intentionality could fill that role, right?
Yes.
Once that one or two brothers come to your mind, then you follow up. In the next 24 hours, give that brother a call, right? Within the next 24 hours, if you don't already have someone that fills that role, in the next 24 hours, give that brother a call and then build with him, right? With a level of intentionality, right? So that was the one thing I wanted to say. The second thing I wanted to say is to echo what Brother Dozier just shared. Lawrence, I had this crazy idea, man. It's like, wait a minute. While this pandemic is going on and all the fellas are just chilling, right? You know, and you know, all the fellas just chilling. Nobody's out in the street. You know, everybody's chilling, right? Wouldn't this be a great opportunity to do some of the stuff that you were just talking about, Brother Dozier, right? To try and hit the street, build some relational capital, or find some folks that are already in the neighborhood that has relational capital, and try and jump in the gap before stuff starts popping off again. Once these social distancing protocols are moved out of the way. This may be a once in a lifetime opportunity to jump and try and make some connections, right? In Camden, to try and make some connections in Chicago, to try and make some connections in New York City and jump in that gap before stuff starts popping off again once these social distancing protocols are let up. So, brother, what you shared, Brother Dozier, is something that's in my heart and my mind as well. And I'd love to see that happen and be a part of it. So yeah, I just wanted to echo that because I was thinking the same thing.
Okay.
So we have like 5 minutes left, Pastor Ieisha.
Yes. Yes.
Anyone have a question a question they want to ask in this last 5 minutes?
Well, a question I have, Dr. Johnson. I know, like I said, I work in the city of Camden, and I'm able to do a lot of things through the Department of Human Services, and what have you. So what I would like to do is offline, I like to get your phone number or what have you, and any kind of information that I might be able to give you, I'd be more than willing to give you. But I'm definitely going to take this and run with it, especially due to the fact that you're talking about a population of 89,000 in the city of Camden. We have about 7 community centers sprawled out throughout the city. And it's definitely something I want to take and run with it or what have you in the city of Camden. So I also like to reach out to you and maybe, get some advice from you, maybe, dialogue with you, and maybe we might be able to replicate. Because I know before this pandemic came about, we were going to have a recognized positive males day in the city of Camden, or whether a person is a father figure, whether a person is just a mentor, whether a person is your father, whether it's the gentleman down the street. This is something that we definitely we're going to work on. And a lot of times to get the younger crowd out, what I realize in my city is sometimes just to have a good old fashioned, even if it's just a barbecue with hot dogs and hamburgers and things of that nature, to get folks to fellowship and come out or what have you. It could definitely be done. I know it can be done. Yes.
Very much so. I just dropped my email address into the chat.
Okay.
Feel free to make note of that. Pastor Ieisha knows I'm here, available to help in whatever way that I can. Please keep in touch. I know Pastor Ieisha will. Her and I we know we've got a lot of work to do in the coming months and years. So I know we've got, this is just the beginning of our working relationship. So Pastor Ieisha, I see it's 8:28. Let me hand the ball back to you for any closing comments you want to make.
Well, can everybody hear me? I think I'm off mute. This has been so delicious, and I thank God for each and every one of you who have participated tonight and being so very authentic. Lawrence, Mark, Gillis, Daryl, Apostle, Michael, Hassan, and B. Darius, and just different ones who did not find it robbery just to share their heart. And I didn't even realize that it was Malcolm X's anniversary. And so that really kind of it really just added a whole nother awe to everything that was said and shared tonight. If you guys would like copies of it, you could go and get it off Facebook and download it, so that if you want to share, I encourage you to share. For those who want to share it with some other men, I think it's very appropriate, especially for now, coming together, being together, not just talking about it, but being about it, because we are headed for something that we have not seen before. We don't even understand. And I definitely wanted to have this platform so that men could have their voice, because I think it's missing, especially in this time. And as a pastor, and a pastor of even of the male population, I wanted your voice to be heard. And so thank you, Pastor Cedric, for just coming. That's my psychotherapist on the side. I love his spirit. And so we thank you for tonight. You shared, and I know it was painful. You shared your own pain. You was vulnerable and authentic. And that is what I love about who you are. And that's why I rocks with you. All right, because we got a lot of platforms we on, but I love your vulnerability and helping us to see, especially in the people of color community, because there's so many different ones. And so on tonight, if there are no other questions, and if there are questions afterwards, you can always send me an inbox message on Facebook. There's various ways you can get in touch. You can go to Love Church. There's so many different ways, but this is not the last conversation. It's just the first of many. And so with that being said, I pray that you will take care of your mind, your heart, and your spirit, because especially in these times, it is very necessary. It is very important. And as Dr. Johnson said, self-care is a must. right? Because we have a long haul ahead of us. And I know that our men are coming into their rightful place. It may have been stolen years ago, but I know from just listening to you guys tonight, my heart was truly immensely blessed, because I could be quiet. So I really like it. So we thank God for you. I just want to bid you God's love and peace on tonight. Thank you for joining us and for being with us and sharing your heart. God bless you.
God bless you.
Bless you too.
Good
Thank you.
Bye-bye. God bless you.
Be well.